High in the Himalayas, India's Pangong is a saline lake that shifts color like a living kaleidoscope and stretches across an international border at 4,350 meters, a rarity on Earth. Do you know the Taj Mahal subtly changes color from pearly dawn to golden dusk because its white marble absorbs light and mood shifts with the moon? A secret the emperors exploited. Deep in the Sundarbans, Bengal tigers swim between mangrove isles, hunting in tidal waters, creatures that have learned to navigate salt and forest in ways scientists still puzzle over. And in Kerala's backwaters, houseboat canals can sometimes glow with bioluminescent plankton that turns ordinary nights into unreal, star-filled rivers few travelers ever witness. The Sundarbans in India form the world's largest mangrove forest, a tidal maze that shelters the legendary Bengal tiger and breathes resilience into the coastline. Do you know the Taj Mahal's whiteness was chosen to capture not just light, but a shifting conversation with the sea and the river Yamuna that cradles it. Built as an act of grief, the Taj is often described as a mausoleum. Yet its true genius is the way every element speaks to time, memory, and astronomy. From a distance, the dome reads as a single flawless pearl. But up close, the marble becomes a mosaic of tiny details carved by hundreds of hands. Pietra dura inlays import jasper, lapis and agate from far-flung quarries, sewing distant landscapes into its skin. The Charbagh garden that leads to the central tomb is not merely decorative. It is a terrestrial map of paradise rendered in quadrants. Calligraphy bands rise like waves of scripture, their black stone letters stretching wider as the walls slope, an optical trick of reverence. At dawn, the marble gives off a warm blush. By noon, it burns brilliant white. Under a full moon, it becomes spectral and soft. These shifts were engineered through choice of stone and placement, turning weather and light into collaborators rather than enemies. Beyond the central tomb, smaller pavilions, minarets, and reflecting pools choreograph a procession of sightlines that always return you to the heart. There are whispers of a mirror image plan across the Yamuna, and stories of craftsmen whose signatures are hidden in floral carvings. What appears to be perfect symmetry is actually a diosti, Each surface answers another, each shadow a silent note in a larger hymn. To stand before the Taj is to face centuries of movement, river trades, imperial dreams, and the whispers of millions who have passed by its gates. And even after all this, there remains one quiet question about the monument that most visitors never leave knowing. A small human secret hidden in stone. Amber Fort perches above Mahota Lake with sandstone walls that seem to shimmer like burnished copper at sunset. Built in the late 16th century by Raja Man Singh IV, the complex blends Mughal and Rajput styles into a fortress palace that still holds royal secrets. Inside, the Taj Mahal is a miniature galaxy of mirrors so intricate that one candle could once illuminate an entire hall. Craftsmen inlaid tiny glass tiles and silvered glass to create thousands of reflective surfaces that scatter light into patterns of stars. Beyond the mirrors, the Ganesh pole gate stands painted with frescoes and guarded by a carved image of the elephant god, marking the threshold to the private royal quarters. Those quarters hide cool marble chambers, courtyards, and jolly screens engineered to catch monsoon breezes and cool the palace without modern electricity. At the base of the fort, Mahota Lake fed an elaborate water system of channels and stepwells that supplied the gardens and cisterns above. On a small island in that lake, the Kasar Kiari saffron terraces were once planted to perfume royal kitchens and medicines. Visitors often notice the fort's layered defenses, multiple gates, ramparts, and surprise passageways that read like a medieval version of urban planning. Those walls do more than defend. They link Amber to the neighboring high ridges where Jaigarh and Nahargarh forts form a protective triangle around Jaipur. Local storytellers still point to narrow paths and rumored tunnels that tie these hill forts together, folding military strategy into landscape. Between Amber and the city below, artisans once carried marble inadors and mirror shards, leaving a trail of craft traditions that survive in Jaipur's bazaars today. The echo of courtly music, the scent of sandalwood, and the shimmer of painted halls all preserve a courtly life that was both brutal and lavish. From Amber's ramparts, you can glimpse the Pink City's grid, a planned capital that answered the fort's need for control and ceremony. As sun slides behind the hills, the fort's layered facades seem to change color, each hue telling a story of conquest, devotion, and aesthetic invention. Amber is not merely a monument. It is a living archive that connects Jaipur's royal past to the craftspeople, markets, and neighboring forts that keep its memory active. When you walk through its echoing halls, you move through centuries of design experiments that sought comfort in stone, light, and water. And as the route leads down toward the city, the same architectural logic continues in the narrow lanes and vivid facades of Jaipur's streets. Amber Fort asks a simple question: how do you build a palace that protects, impresses, cools, and tells stories at once? The answer unfolds in each painted arch, mirror-studded ceiling, and linked hilltop fortification you'll discover next. The Ganges, born in the glaciers and winding across the subcontinent, becomes a living artery through Varanasi, where water is worshipped as a sentient force unlike almost any other river. Do you know Varanasi's ghats number over 80, forming one of the densest concentrations of ritual stairways and public life anywhere on Earth? At dawn, the city rises on the river. Boats stitch light into steam, and priests chant as if time itself bends to the shore. The first boat ride here feels like entering a crossroad of centuries, where each ghat keeps a different spelling of memory. Dashashwamedh Ghat explodes with ceremony at Chog, an orchestrated blaze of lamps and incense that transforms routine into spectacle. From that blaze, you can slip into the labyrinth of alleys and find Kashi Vishwanath, a temple whose gold-plated spire hides stories of conquest, reconstruction, and devotion. Beyond the temple bells, the city's alleys smell of frying spices and of silk threads, being hammered and woven into Banarasi saris that carry secrets passed down generations. Walk from a ghat into a weaver's courtyard, and you shift from ritual to craft, watching motifs emerge like prayers embroidered in brocade. Not all of Varanasi is celebration. Manikarnika and Harishchandra Ghats confront the cycle of life with an unflinching honesty that shapes local belief. To many here, the river does not merely bury or cleanse, it completes a journey, offering the possibility of moksha that has drawn pilgrims for millennia. Music threads through these same lanes. Tabla rhythms and vocal lineages of the Benares Gharana ripple from tiny teaching rooms onto the waterfront. You can hear a raga unfurling at sunrise and imagine the same notes accompanying centuries of rituals and private grief. A quick ride upriver leads to Sarnath, where the Buddha gave his first sermon, linking Varanasi's devotional fire to a quieter, contemplative past. At Sarnath, the ruined stupas, deer-haunted groves, and the Ashokan pillar whisper another layer of history that tourists often miss. Yet it is the intertwining, ghats to temples, craftsmen to cremation grounds, music to meditation, that makes Varanasi less a single place than a living palimpsest. There are hidden corners where local myths flare into astonishing acts of devotion and small rituals you will not find in guidebooks. Stay with this city, and it will keep revealing contradictions. Joy threaded with sorrow, spectacle paired with hush, until you can name the sound of the river. In the next segment, we will follow a single family of weavers from loom to ghat and uncover one secret that ties their work to Varanasi's oldest rites. Prepare to see how a single thread can carry history, belief, and livelihood across generations. What appears simple here often hides an elaborate logic that binds people to river and craft alike. Kerala's Alleppey backwaters in India form one of the planet's largest contiguous networks of lagoons, canals, and slow-moving rivers, where fresh water meets the Arabian Sea. Do you know Alleppey's Ketuvalam houseboats were once humble rice barges stitched together without nails, and today, their wooden hulls shelter floating kitchens, festivals, and an entire way of life. Sunlight slips through coconut fronds onto mirror-still canals that harbor floating gardens, rare freshwater jellyfish, and migratory birds that time their arrival to the monsoon's rhythm. Fishermen push silent poles past villages where life is measured by tide and trade, and every backwater bend reveals a secret. Reed fishermen, choir makers, and centuries-old temple festivals. From Alleppey's labyrinth, we glide mentally north and skyward, to a place where water becomes an ice-bright mirror at 4,350 meters, and the air itself feels thin. Do you know Pangong Lake in Ladakh stretches across an international border and is one of the highest saline lakes in the world, its surface turning from blue to emerald as light shifts? Pangong's shoreline is lunar and raw, where nomadic herders graze yaks and tiny tributaries ring the lake with fragile oases of life. In winter, the saline water stuns by freezing into blue ice that cracks like glass. And in summer, rare bar-headed geese returned, completing an annual drama shaped by altitude and solitude. Two waters, tropical backwaters and alpine refined salt lake, tell the same Indian story. How people adapt, trade and celebrate around improbable bodies of water. Travel between them, and you'll see how climate and culture are written in water. From coconut boats at sea level to prayer flags skittering over frozen shores. Both Alleppey and Pangong hold hidden habits, secret boat makers who pass techniques down generations, and old fishermen and shepherds who read weather like scripture. Stay with these waters, and you'll learn not just geography, but the human rhythms that make India's landscapes sing with unexpected detail. In the high, cold desert of Ladakh, India, Nubra Valley holds one of the world's rarest landscapes. Braided rivers feeding islands of green amid sand. Do you know Nubra Valley is the only place in India where wild Bactrian camels, the double-humped survivors of Silk Road caravans, still wander its dunes? Here, villages sit along riverbanks and apricot orchards erupt into color each summer, their ancient irrigation channels coaxing life from gravel and permafrost. Monasteries like Diskit and Samstanling perch on rocky heights, their prayer wheels and murals binding Buddhist ritual to the valley's delicate water cycle. Travelers winding down from Ladakh watch stark moonscapes suddenly give way to ribboned fields, a striking reminder of sharp contrasts and hidden abundance. In Hunter, the dunes create an almost surreal foreground for glacier peaks, and camel caravans still conjure echoes of traders who crossed these passes with salt and silk. Elders tell stories of migration and marriage that stitched Ladakhi and Tibetan cultures together, while younger residents navigate tourism, education, and shifting snowfall. Monks and scientists now meet to map shrinking glaciers because the timing of meltwater from the Shyok and Nubra rivers governs harvests and local survival. Night turns the valley into a cathedral of stars, brilliant and intimate. Yet those clear skies also spotlight a vulnerability as warming alters melt rhythms. To understand Nubra is to follow water from icy source to orchard, to hear orchard keepers and camel herders describe how tradition adapts under new pressures. Next, we will walk from Hunter's sand seas toward Diskit's cliffside monastery to listen to a lama recall festivals, floods, and the subtle ways life here endures. What emerges is not only a landscape of extremes, but a living network of people, water, and memory that ties Silk Road echoes to a fragile Himalayan future. Along an astonishing stretch of India's west coast, Goa cradles one of the planet's few remaining tropical estuary mosaics, where freshwater rivers meet the Arabian Sea, stitching mangroves, mudflats, and coral patches into a single living border. Do you know that Goa's Donapala and Chapora estuaries host migratory birds and rare seagrass beds that quietly sustain local fisheries, and on rare nights, bioluminescent glows along the shore? Walk from the bustling shores of Kalangute to the quieter sands of Baga, and you'll feel how centuries of trade and tides stitched a coastal culture that lives by the sea. Between them, rocky inlets hide tidal pools where hermit crabs, starfish, and secret gardens of seagrass keep the shoreline's ancient rhythms alive. Head south, and the tempo slows into the crescent beaches of Palolem and Dakonanda, where fishermen still haul wooden canoes ashore at dawn. There, endangered olive ridley turtles return under cover of night to bury their eggs in sands their ancestors used, making these stretches guardians of a fragile, living lineage. Further north, Anjuna and Vagadstore trade sleepy mornings for electric suns, cliffs carving dramatic silhouettes against the sea. Anjuna's rocky bays conceal caves and tidal shelves where phosphorescent plankton sometimes flare like underwater constellations, a secret spectacle for late-night swimmers. Vagator's red cliffs yield to secluded coves that flow into serene backwaters, where mangrove roots trap the sea's stories and feed the coastal fisheries. From these backwaters, narrow channels snake inland, linking Chapora to Reis Magos and binding beaches to rivers in an unbroken coastal tapestry. In quieter stretches, Morjim, Ashvem, and Mandrem, flocks of migratory birds and the slow choreography of fishing nets hint at a balance lived day by day by local communities. Nearby, salt pans turn into surprising alcoves for wintering flamingos and shorebirds, transforming human-made flats into ephemeral bird havens. Even the busiest beaches keep secrets. Artisanal markets sell smoked fish, cashew fini, and spice blends that smell like the archipelago's layered past. From hidden lagoon trails to cliff-top chapels that chart centuries of sailors and saints, Goa's shoreline connects human stories to the deep, shifting sea. By learning to read its currents and protect its mangroves, local stewards have kept alive a coastline that is both playground and lifeline. So think of Goa not just as sun-soaked sands, but as an intricate living system where each beach is a chapter in an ongoing coastal epic. Sundarbans National Park holds the largest contiguous mangrove forest on Earth and shelters Bengal tigers that regularly swim between islands. Do you know Sundarbans National Park's rivers can erase entire islands in a single season, reshaping coastlines without notice? In this tidal labyrinth, channels reverse, saltwater climbs inland, and mudflats appear and vanish with the pulse of the Bay of Bengal. Local honey collectors, fishermen, and forest guards read these tides like a language, risking encounters with tigers that hunt in the water. Mangrove species here, especially the Sundari tree that gave the region its name, filter salt with roots that trap silt and build land. The park supports an astonishing array of life, from mudskippers and estuarine crocodiles to hundreds of migratory birds and elusive mammals. Villages on the park's fringe depend on the forest for livelihood, collecting honey, crab, and fish on routes passed down generation to generation. At the same time, increasing cyclones and rising seas are swallowing farms and forcing communities and wildlife into a shrinking habitat. Folklore here is thick with tales of forest kings and shape-shifting spirits, stories that blur the line between myth and survival strategy. Scientists have found unique behavioral and physiological adaptations in Sundarbans wildlife, from salt-tolerant plants to tigers that swim surprisingly long distance. Geographically, the Sundarbans is the dynamic heart of the Ganges-Brahmaputra Delta, connecting the Himalayas rivers to the Bay of Bengal and beyond. What happens here sends sediment, nutrients, and sometimes disaster downstream, affecting millions along the coastline and the health of the broader marine ecosystem. Over the next minutes, we'll slip down narrow creeks, trace disappearing paw prints in the mud, and hear the delicate science that measures the forest's slow vanishing. You'll meet people who still interpret tides like weather forecasts, and researchers racing to map shifting islands before they disappear entirely. Expect to encounter bioluminescent waters, honey hunters on precarious boats, and conservationists balancing human need with tiger survival in real time. By the end, you'll see why the Sundarbans is not just a protected area on a map, but a living, moving landscape that writes its own borders with every tide. On the banks of the Ganga at Rishikesh, the river curves through a corridor of banyan and pine, where pilgrimage, yoga, and whitewater adventure meet. Visitors find themselves standing where the Himalayan glaciers begin their long melt, and the river here carries both sacred legend and raw mountain energy. Every dawn, the ghats fill with saffron-robed seekers and early risers whose breath fogs in the crisp air as priests sound bells and lamps drift downstream. Yet beneath the ritual lies something less spoken of. Rishikesh is one of the rare places on Earth where the river still supports endangered freshwater species and age-old riverine traditions. The famous Laxman Jula and Ram Jula suspension bridges are not just tourist icons, but living threads that connect village life, ashrams, and riverside markets. Walk a little farther, and the roar of rafters gives way to secluded pools where meditation teachers trace breath to current, teaching that the Ganga here is both mirror and teacher. Local boatmen navigate sudden eddies that have claimed the inexperienced, and their knowledge of the water reads like a secret map of stones and seasons. This intimate rivercraft culture links Rishikesh to towns downstream, a human chain that keeps river lore alive, from the high passes to the plains beyond. In monsoon months, the river swells spectacularly, reshaping sandbanks and washing new stories ashore, while in winter its clarity reveals submerged boulders, polished by centuries. That seasonal drama is what draws scientists and pilgrims alike. And it is also why conservation efforts here resonate far beyond the town's lantern-lit evenings. As your journey continues downstream to Haridwar and Varanasi, you carry Rishikesh's lessons. Remember the Ganga's highland heartbeat, because what is forged here shapes every bend, floodplain, and story the river will carry onward into lives of generations downstream. The Rann of Kutch in India is one of the world's only salt desert ecosystems that transforms into shimmering white plains and hosts seasonal flamingo congregations. Do you know the Rann of Kutch becomes a luminous expanse each year, where artisans and nomads converge for a moonlit festival, unlike any other? Perched above Jaipur, Mehrangarh Fort soars from a rocky promontory, its red sandstone walls catching fire at sunset and visible for miles across the plains. Its ramparts hide an intricate maze of palaces, courtyards, and galleries where royal life was staged in marble, mirror, and painted wood. Inside, ornate chambers like Moti Mahal and Sheesh Mahal display carved jalis, frescoes, and ceilings so detailed they read like stitched narratives. The fort's museum safeguards turbans, royal cradles, howdahs, and weaponry that map centuries of battles, alliances, and courtly ritual. Below those ramparts, Jaipur's famed indigo houses spread like a painter's wash, a living backdrop that frames Mehrangarh's silhouette. That blue carpet isn't just pretty, it cools homes, signals community identity, and feeds into the visual memory that made the fort legendary. Local storytellers keep the fort's myths alive, speaking of sacred foundation rituals and a hermit's blessing that ensured the citadel's endurance. Musicians still fill the courtyards with ragas, and puppeteers enact royal sagas, tying tangible stone to living tradition. Climb the battlements at dusk, and the panorama unfolds. Desert plains, distant villages, and the Lapis city nested below, each roof a chapter. Mehrangarh then feels less like frozen history and more like a chronicle written in stone, shadow, and light. Conservation projects now protect frescoes and latticework while inviting contemporary artists to dialogue with the past. But the fort keeps a quieter secret: an ingenious water management network and hidden reservoirs that sustained its people through sieges. Join us next as we descend from Mehrangarh's ramparts to trace those subterranean channels and meet the craftsmen who still tend them today. The Nilgiri Hills around Ooty protect one of the planet's rare shola grassland ecosystems, a high-altitude tropical mosaic, surviving in only a few global pockets. Do you know the Nilgiri tar is endemic here and nearly vanished before focused conservation slowly brought populations back from the brink? Misty tea plantations, eucalyptus avenues, and the narrow-gauge Nilgiri Mountain Railway stitch villages, forests, and viewpoints into a landscape that feels like a living postcard. Do you know the train negotiates steep gradients with clever colonial-era engineering, including sections locally called jiggers that make the route uniquely dramatic? Hidden shola patches harbor rare orchids and freshwater frogs, while nearby lakes like Ooty Lake and Avalanche Reservoir shape local microclimates and livelihoods. Do you know early British botanists reshaped some water bodies and planted exotic species, leaving a visible colonial fingerprint across Ooty's botanical landscapes? From Ooty, the ridgelines lead to Kunur and Kotagiri, each hill station offering distinct winds, coffee estates, and trails woven into the Nilgiri mosaic. Do you know shepherds still use ancient grazing paths and villagers harvest wild honey, practices that intertwine human culture with this fragile mountain ecology? Morning inversions can trap sunlight in valleys, while higher ridges stay cool, creating light and temperature gradients photographers and scientists both prize. Do you know, conservationists are now working to reconnect fragmented sholas, linking Ooty's fate to broader Western Ghats restoration that benefits wildlife and people alike. As dusk falls, cardamom-scented breezes rise from plantations, and village lights begin to stitch a human constellation across the darkening hills. Do you know, following narrow ridgelines can reveal family-run tea rooms, hidden viewpoints, and stories passed down for generations that connect people to the land? Local storytellers whisper stars descend onto tea slopes. Those tales encode centuries of knowledge, guiding hill stewardship still today. From snow-sheer ridgelines that feed ancient rivers to coral-guarded islands that hide shipwrecks, this land keeps surprising those who seek it. We traced the slow pulse of the backwaters, stood under the hush of sandalwood forests, and watched cities where thousands of rituals breathe together. Each fort and ghat we visited whispers stories of emperors and everyday courage, and every space market carries the memory of trade routes that once looped the Gawat. The desert's starlit silence, the monsoon's sudden curtains, and the Himalayas' sacred glaciers all fold into the same long conversation about survival, faith, and invention. From the bird-rich wetlands in the east to the windswept coasts in the west, biodiversity here is not an exhibit, but a living, contested home. Yet beneath that abundance, communities are rewriting traditions to face climate shifts, conservation challenges, and new hopes. What we visited are not isolated postcards, but threads in a tapestry where food, faith, language, and migration bind one place to the next. A fisherman's knowledge of tides connects to a rice farmer's calendar, which in turn shaped festivals that animate the streets of old cities. If this journey teaches one thing, it is that the extraordinary in this land is often ordinary to those who live it. To look and to listen closely is to find more hidden wonders than any list could hold. Carry these images with you: the ritual smoke on a riverbank, the sudden bloom after monsoon rains, the quiet footprints in desert sand. And when you return, let the stories you encountered change the way you see places and people everywhere you go. This is not an ending, but an invitation to explore further, to ask new questions, and to be responsible where you travel. Because the deeper you go, the more this land gives back to those who arrive with curiosity and respect.